oiorete hinya nanekeo goro yakwa eioire keno nekomenya denawe wemodo ereri tigaware mwana wakwoke doerera doshia ngoro yakwa neshingea hotire tigawa jaragerio kanjera gatere mode mekekaga negwanyo newega igoro yamodomo dewe wegai wekaga magegania oiorete hinya nanekeo goro yakwa eioire keno nekomenya denawe wemodo wereri zaidi ya mama yote wewe ni Mungu mkuu utendaye maajabu mwenye nguvu zote ndiposa moyo wangu umejaa furaha kwani mimi najua umtetezi wangu.
Wow, wow, wonderful, Carol. There is no way I would have let you not come in singing that almost, becomes an anthem. I mean, I could see Fiona interpret it, and yet she's not from our side of the land. That was amazing. So I welcome all of you. Good evening, our viewers. We are sorry for that lapse of time because of technology. I'm telling you, technology has come to do us good, but technology will also give us a bit of challenges, but we appreciate. And here we are. It's nice to come back to you this Friday on Before and After I Say I Do. It's me, your host, Pauline. And today I'm delighted to have a guest. And remember, this month we are talking about hope, keeping hope alive, and our focus is on people who are not married. Before I say I do, of course, even those who are married are need also to keep our hope alive. But most importantly, the topics we have been bringing this month are to show you that there are things that would happen that would make you feel like things are not happening. Why isn't this happening? Why is somebody's thing happening and all? But of course, it's to come to show us that everybody has a lane. We always say, keep on your lane. And so we don't know how your lane is going to be. As you go on with life, it might be a tough lane, but we need to keep hope alive before we say I do. And especially for those aspiring one day to say I do. And so my guest tonight is Carol Wanjiru Munduiriri, and it was a joy just to call her up. I had never seen her before or talked to her, and such an amazing, sweet lady, a humble lady. So it's nice to have you, Carol, this evening. And our sign language interpreter this evening is Fiona Wallace. Thank you, Fiona, for being with us. We are delighted because we want this word to get to everybody, not to some people. So we appreciate that we can have Fiona this evening to interpret with us. So before we continue, Carol, please say hello to my viewers.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in today at Wawira Counseling so that we may also be blessed together. I want to promise you that God has something for you. If you're an aspiring person who looking forward to getting married in future, this is the place to be. And as we continue, I believe that the Lord will bless us all. It is an honor to be here. Thank you, Pauline, for having me.
Wow, nice. So, Carol, how do you feel when your song is being sung everywhere. I think it's sung in our nation and out of the nation. What does that make you feel? I know that is not part of what we are talking about, but I have to ask that one.
It's a very humbling experience because I usually tell people it is not that I am one of the best songwriters. It is just that God chose to trust me with the message and believe that He will help me to bring forth the message as He wanted. And so seeing people sing Munduiriri and even identify with the song in their own personal lives, for me is a very humbling experience. And it also helps me to understand that if God can use anything, He can also use me and anybody else. So yeah, it is a joy and a humbling experience.
Wow, thank you. It is a song in season and out of season. Thank you very much. Now, Carol, now that we are talking about before getting married, tell us, what was your vision, growing up? What was your vision? How did you grow up when you were a young girl? What were your thoughts about marriage? How did you grow up in and wanting and desiring in life?
Well, I must begin, Pauline, by saying that I was born, those people you call a born town. I was born in Kangemi. I was raised in a few kilometers from there, a place called Uthiru. And I
Yes,
went
sorry,
to
Carol, please.
Kabete.
Carol, please
Hello?
raise your voice. The voice,
Okay.
yes, please. Thank you.
I was saying that I am those kind of girls who would say I was born in town, urban,
Yeah.
in Nairobi, because I was born in Kangemi and brought up in Uthiru, which is not very far from Kangemi. And I went to Kabete Vet Labs Primary School, and later I went to Naivasha for my high school studies, and then later came back again to Nairobi. So that's my life and childhood. My parents, I was brought up by a single parent because my parents divorced when we were very young. I was still in primary school. And so I basically have grown up in a family setting of a single parent. We are 5 siblings, and I'm the second born and the second born girl. So I
Mm-hmm.
usually tell people I'm like I grew up like a mother, because being a second born and a girl, definitely a lot of roles had to be mine. Growing up in terms of looking up to the future, I wanted to be the best. I remember because of my musical gift when I was in primary school, I would be given, those gifts where when there's praise giving days, and they would give me prizes. And I remember one time I was given a book called Anna the Air Hostess. So as a small girl, I grew up wanting to be an air hostess because I kind of like admired Anna the Air Hostess that I read from that gift. And I remember one time when I was a small girl, there was a wedding in my village in Ethiru. And this bride was so beautiful. And even much later, when I would look at that lady, because now she went on ahead to be a mother and everything, I still thought she was the best, most beautiful bride I'd ever seen. So growing up as a small girl, I wanted to have a beautiful wedding, be a beautiful girl, a bride, and all. But as I developed and started growing older, of course, the priorities and the things I wanted in looked up towards marriage changed. And especially because I gave my life to the Lord at the age of 16, I was still in high school. So you at that age we had so many like times when in my church we'll be taught about marriage and be prepared for those stuff. And so I decided I started to change my view on what I want. And I was looking for somebody that is godly, a man that is in ministry, because I knew God was calling me to ministry early in life, very early in my Christian walk with the Lord. I knew God was calling me into ministry. And so I also wanted somebody that understands ministry and how God works. And so, yeah, growing up was that. As I grew much older, those are the things that I began to look for. I wanted somebody who is a godly person and somebody that has a relationship with God and somebody that has a personal walk with God. And yes, that was me growing up and looking up at marriage.
Wow. So as much as you say that you were brought up in a single parent home, you still desired to get married one day. You never felt like it would not happen.
Of course, yes. Especially when you grow up without one parent, you desire to have both parents in your union. And even to date, I must say, Pauline, that is one value that I really hold on very dear. That it is wonderful to bring up children with two parents, but when it doesn't happen, it is still okay because we have seen myself. I came up from a family that had one parent, but growing up, yes, I really looked forward to getting married. And of course, coming from a background with a church setting, we had many weddings. People set examples. We had mentors who went ahead of us, and I looked up to them, and I was like, I want to walk the steps of this girl. I want to walk the steps of this young person. And so I had
Mhm.
also people that laid examples of how it should be when it comes to Christian weddings.
Wow, okay. So you desired to have somebody who fears the Lord, who is godly. And so at what point
Yes.
then did you get that person? When did you start dating? Because that is, you are looking for such kind of a person.
Well, my experience was I met somebody who was quite godly. This person, when I met him, we were in ministry together. When I left high school, I also volunteered with Kenya Students Christian Fellowship. And that is where I met this person. And it wasn't somebody that, a stranger to me. We had done so many missions together. There was no relationship in the making. But at some point, maybe about 4 or 5 years later, that is when the relationship aspect came in. And
Mm-hmm.
so this was somebody that I knew very well, and it's somebody that even now I would say loves the Lord. And so that is how it worked. It's somebody that also I also saw for a long time, although it at some point it ended up being a long distance relationship. This person went to work out of the country, and I was
Mm-hmm.
here. And so, and again, Pauline, when you date, it's different from when you are serving God together.
Mm-hmm. So
You
there's
get
a
confronted with aspects of a person that you would never be confronted when you're in the same Christian union, when you're in the same youth group, when it becomes something different, when the friendship becomes a relationship. Definitely you're confronted with aspects of this person that you never knew before, some good, some bad, some very unsure, but yeah, that is me, and that is what happened. So when I went into that dating level, it wasn't a stranger, but it was also somebody that I had never figured going dating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a point you said there, which I would want you to you say that there's a difference between being in ministry with someone or serving God with someone, if you're a Christian, and dating the same a person and dating. There's a difference. Do you want to say a little more about that? What you meant?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think when you're in ministry together, say for example, young people growing up in the same youth group, you will laugh, but there's nothing that will bring out the other character. But when somebody starts to care for someone, so you will see some characters maybe of that person that you did not know when they are projecting themselves maybe in the relationship, they will come out differently. And sometimes the young person can be confronted with an aspect of that person that they did not know. Sometimes it can be something that is so encouraging, like that person, I didn't know they are that caring.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know they would look out to me. I thought they didn't care, like, so there are those special aspects of a person that becomes very,
Yes.
and also I think intimacy, when a relationship goes to that level of a relationship, not just a kawaida relationship,
Mm-hmm.
uh, definitely this person will try to project. Sometimes you will experience somebody who will try to be who they are not.
Yes.
Others will
Yes.
be very real. So also that depends with where they're coming from and who they are. If they have
Mm-hmm.
something that they really would not want to bring out in the open, they will really be pretend, if I should say that. in the relationship. So it is very different. A friendship is different from a relationship.
Wow. That is powerful. Thank you for that, Carol. So take us through your dating. So now you've begun dating. How was that like?
First of all, I must say, Pauline, it was a new idea because, like I said, this was not somebody I had ever pictured dating. So it was an idea that took quite some time for me to really accept it and take it like, yeah, it can happen, because it's somebody I had known for like a friend for so long, until the idea of a dating thing never really crossed my mind. But because we had been in quite, the ministry, we had served God together for quite some time. I remember it was in 2008. Towards the end of that year, myself and a friend of mine who was my prayer partner then, still is, we had some, over Christmas we decided to go and pray instead of, like having Christmas with family. So we had time to pray, and every time I'd go to pray, I felt like God was telling me it's time. It's time for me to get into a relationship. And I shared with this lady, and the only person that was around asking and pushing and continuing to, plan this idea was this person. And over time, because of the this is somebody that is also very persistent. So it's not somebody that you will say, I said no once or twice. And of course, there were other reasons that sometimes made me want to take time with it, because it's, like I said, it's somebody I knew very well. And so there was also some aspects of fear involved. And so when finally when I felt like towards the end of the year, during that prayer retreat, that this is what God is pushing me. I think as a young person, what I didn't take time to ask is it him? I automatically, because I really liked him now, the idea had taken shape, and I really liked him. And this was somebody who knew God very well. He loves God, and every detail about his Christian walk was just perfect. And at that time, he was also had served as a youth pastor in a local church. And so it's somebody that I knew was going the ministry way. So I kind of like said yes. And so shortly after that is when this person went out. So we never really had what you'd call contact dating. Much of it was because shortly after that he got a job and in some place in Dubai, and so most of it was this long distance relationship, until now he came back the following year, towards the end or mid the following year, for the wedding preparations. Yeah.
So yes, you knew him as a friend and for many years, but now the dating time is when now he had to be away.
Yeah, most of the dating was out. Actually, nearly all of it was out of what was long distance. He was not here.
So at what point did he come back? So were you still now? Had you already proceeded to arrange the wedding, or what transpired there?
While away, that is when the wedding plans began. So he came a month towards the beginning of the plans. And the reason was because the family would not have wanted to be part of it unless he was here. So that was why he came, so that we can begin the process when he's here. And so when he came, that is now when the process began. That he came back in around June of 2009. And the process began towards the end of July. Yeah.
And when had you planned for the wedding?
It was always in the talk, like during the relationship. It was always, we knew the moment this person came in my life, that was the end. And also
that was the end.
Pauline, sometimes it's good to also say this, that some people will come in your life, and this one I'm saying to any lady that is listening, a young girl that is looking to get into a relationship. Sometimes you will get somebody who will come to say the things you want. And if they know that this is the direction you want to take with your life, that is what they will say. Sometimes they might be genuine, and sometimes they may not be. And so in my case, that was what I always, I began saying, I looked to get married. I wanted to serve God and then, progress to marriage, the normal life progression. And so this person knew, and so that was in our talk all the time. And this person knew very well that if that is not in the mix, then why am I dating?
So that was June. So that was in June when he came back. When had you planned for the wedding to be?
Towards, I think, all through in 2009, that the discussion had started being there.
No, sorry. I meant you said he came in June. So when was the wedding to be?
It was to be on December the 19th.
Okay, all right. Okay. So he comes back. So so he comes back in June. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, the plans began shortly after, about a month after that, around towards the end of July, and the plans took off. We started meetings. They came home for the first visit. Luckily, they never came for the what we call dowry negotiations. Never really happened because that is when the engagement broke. Before that happened, but all the other things, like we went to church introduction, both churches, my church and their church. We took, like the normal beginning of wedding plans began. And then after that, the engagement broke around October. Around October. So we had about like 3 months of planning. We had started committee meetings, we had started family meetings and all those. And church, we actually had attended one premarital.
So by this time, Carol, what were you? Did you sense anything? Was there any red flag? How was it?
Thank you, Pauline, for this question, because sometimes when I talk about it, I always tell young people that do not ignore any red flag. And I am by no means saying that this was a bad person or that it's just that there were so many red flags. Even when I said yes, I must say there were enough red flags. But I remember I said that I assumed, because this was the only person asking, that he was the one. And so the first red flag was that I needed to be very sure, is it him? Is it this person that, Lord, yes, you're saying that it is time, but is it this person? So sometimes young people, and I was one of those ones who just decide because I kind of just like this person, and this person fits my description of my Mr. Right. But there are also other details that God knows that you do not know. And so for me, that was my first red flag, that I needed to be very sure. Is it God? Are you pointing me towards this person? Or is this just that I like him? And then towards now the planning, of course, even beginning from when he came, definitely there were so many things. But because we had already progressed, I remember at some point, just around the plans, at some point I would tell myself, this is something that I'll tell my heart and not tell anybody. I would say, if this thing had not gone this far, I think I would have changed my mind. But now my parents are involved, church already, so let's just carry on. So there are things that I saw and I ignored, because already I was like, we have gone too far. My parents are involved, they have come home. How do I call this thing off? But I also thank God, because I think God looks at the heart. And genuinely, my desire was to go into, and I remember at some point, and I will say this as well, that any relationship that is built on a wrong foundation cannot stand. And I nearly went into something that had a wrong foundation. If especially a marriage foundation is founded on something that is not true, if a marriage is founded on, because a marriage is a lasting institution, it's something that will not change. God does not plan, get people together so that they can get back away from it. There's not no the aspect of divorce is not something that is negotiable with God. So you can imagine, Pauline, that you're starting something that is lasting on a wrong foundation. It cannot stand. And so for me, some of them were foundational issues that were being laid on this relationship that were quite off. I saw them and I was like, well, it will change. Well, I think maybe, and then especially for ladies, I don't know whether this happens with gentlemen, but for ladies, ladies have the tendency. I don't know whether it was just me, but ladies have the tendency of explaining behaviors away. You know, somebody does something and you say, "Oh, I think he's just tired. Oh, I think he just didn't want to come for the committee today, you know. I think he just don't like my family." But really, those are really serious red flags. And so today, being much wiser, I would say that if you see something that is quite off, especially if it's something that is bothering you and hurting you so much, if you want to go with that into your marriage, look at it and say, this person is like this now. I can only amplify his behavior in future because now he's like this with his guards, with his guards. The moment we get into the union and his guards are down, this will be amplified. So that was something also that I saw, and because I was really looking forward and we had already started the process, I didn't want to, and the reason why I didn't want to pull it off was shame. I didn't want to face people. I didn't want to tell people, you know.
You thought, so you thought by you felt you wanted, it was not working. You saw those red flags you have mentioned, but you imagined you can't cancel, you can't tell people you're not doing it. So and I'm sure, Carol, you're speaking to somebody listening who is a young person who, I mean, it is, you feel like it is okay, let me just do it. But I like what you said. You when whatever you see, you amplify it. You know, it will be bigger. It can only be bigger.
Yeah, if you're
So you
unhappy in a
continued.
relationship.
So you
I was
continued,
just
and then,
finishing
so
what you're
what
saying.
transpired after that? So now so what transpired?
So we continued. I'm saying these are things I would see on and off. Like somebody doesn't want to go somewhere, doesn't want to show up in a meeting, you know, and sometimes you're explaining it away like this person is tired, or this person just didn't feel that, just didn't want to be around these people, you know, those kind of things. But as we progressed, you know, around, you know, the way the wedding plans go. So there are times that we go to the place where now family is involved and we have plans together. Sometimes we will need to go to church. And so at around towards the end, it was I think it was on the 25th of February, of October, the 25th of October. If I'm not wrong, it was on a Thursday. I may have forgotten, but it was on the 25th of October is when the relationship broke. And what happened is not that personally, I was still going on with it. I was still pushing stuff. And also that one is a girl's weakness. You push through with something that is really just because I had wanted that we get married, even if it will break up later. But I thank God because around the 25th of October is when now this person was meeting our best man, and they had a meeting, and like I said, some of the problems were foundational. Without going into detail, some of them were foundational, like things that were present during the relationship, the long distance relationship, entanglements that happened around that time that were not in the, you know, like were not in the relationship domain. So you can imagine, and that is where I'm saying you building a long-lasting relationship based on a lie or on a wrong relationship. So the information that needed to be there and wasn't there, And so around that time, when this person had a meeting with our best couple, that is when now I think, you know, sometimes somebody can carry something and wonder, even if I go with this into the relationship, what will I do in it? How will I handle it when this problem confronts me? And so I thank God for that, because that is when now he was able to open up, and our best man, who was a pastor and is still, offered advice and said, you know, based on this, I think let's break this thing off. Let's just work with you. Let's help you through, and let's just begin, you know, start on a clean slate. And so I didn't know. So I didn't know all that. So they later called me, and yeah, when I was confronted now with some of the truth, I couldn't handle it also. And so, yeah, that's how we broke up.
So your best couple called you at their home and told you the news?
No, they didn't call both of us. This person talked, and I had a meeting with the best maid, and
yes,
she took me through it.
How was that for you, Carol?
The day we were meeting, because that was the following day. So the day I was to meet with this lady, our best maid, we had a date. It was not that we didn't have a date. We had a date for me, because we were meeting so that we can go and look at the gowns, you know, all those shop for the gowns, stuff. And so when we met, this lady kept not wanting us to go that way. So she was like, why don't we just sit and talk fast? And I said, you know, we don't have time, because I was excited. I wanted us to go, and I wanted to see the gowns and all that.
Yeah, so you wanted to choose a gown.
Yes. And this lady, being the wise person she is, let me do it. And after we did, now she told me, let's sit down and have lunch. And so when we sat down, she, of course, being a wise and a beautiful counselor, like the way she is, she took me through a process of, you know, because this is something that was completely new, information that I had never come across. And so it wasn't easy. To say it was a devastating experience is an understatement. I was shocked, I was broken, and then I was confused. So she took me through the whole process and the information that I needed to have, and she told me how this person opened up with the best man, and how they agreed that she will come and talk to me, and that they will take me through the process. But I must say, for me, sometimes there's a place where I felt at that time that I do not want to hear stuff. I want to know. And so I called this person, and they couldn't receive my calls for some time, but I told them, you know, I want to hear you say it. Are these things true? You know, like, yeah, is this it? Is this what you said? Is this true? And so, yeah, we later had a meeting. But that day when the news came, even though I had those red flags, and sometimes I would hear stuff and just shrug it off. And so when it happened for me, it was shocking. And then I was broken. You know, remember, I didn't want to call this thing off, because I didn't want to face the shame that would come with it. I didn't want to face the questions that would come with it. So, and now it has happened. And then somebody has facilitated it for my best reason. I couldn't get it. I was nearly even angry with them. I said, you know, I needed to be consulted. Why did you just talk to me? All those things. But looking back, Pauline, I must say that for me, that was the best. That couple made one beautiful decision, and they helped us. And how can I say, I couldn't have had the courage to do that, but I think God used somebody that was in my life and just at the right time to make just the right decision. So it broke up, but later I felt I needed closure, and because this person never confronted me, they never came to tell me those things. You know, they never came to open up. They never came to face me. So I looked for him, and we sat down, and I asked all those questions. And I felt, and I told him, you know, I forgive you. But I remember one word that God gave me at that time, which I'm going to speak to any person today, being a young girl or even a man, that when you deal with somebody who loves God just like you do, and they're a child of God just like you are, it is important to also care for them, because there are things that you would do caring for yourself, and you forget that the other person has God as their dad as well. So sometimes it would be wise to be very careful of other people's hearts and and feelings, and also be careful of how you also deal with them. So for me, that was the word that God gave me, and I said, you will project God more, not by how much we say we know Him, but how much we act. And I said, I would ask that in future, if God helps you, please be careful on how you act in terms of knowing God, because the more you show forth God, you care for others. You don't take people for granted. You don't harm people. You don't withhold information from people. You do things that God would want you to do. And so yeah, that was it.
Wow. So now, Carol, you are still a believer. Of course, by that time, this gentleman was a believer. How did you feel towards God? Now, you had seen red flags. You were feeling, but then you were like, no, let me just get married. And then now, because you are fearing shame, like you said, but then now it has actually happened. How did you feel towards God?
Okay, now, one thing is that you remember in the issues of marriage, the devil is at play as well, because marriage is an institution that was begun by God. And so there is also that element of the devil, that he would want to, of course, want you to go the wrong way. And the Bible says that no temptation has come to man that is no temptation has come that is not common to man. So everything that people have been left, relationships have broken, engagements people have, men have walked out of women have walked out of men. But when it happens at that point, you know what? The devil would want to make you feel like you're the only person, the most unique person on earth. And that's how I felt. I felt like in my village, no girl has ever been, a relationship had never, especially at that level, had never broken. And I felt like a fast starter of all this bad stuff. And so the first thing I felt like God, remember I said that when praying in around Christmas of 2008, I had heard God telling me this time. And the day I remember, I told God, I will go this way. This person all the way out of there called me. And so I felt like, this is a confirmation. So I went back to God and said, God, had you misled me? Because usually and that is the problem with most of us believers, God is never wrong. At some point, I know that I needed to have listened to God. But at that time, you want to justify yourself and ask God, was it that you gave me a wrong word? And so I felt like I had been forsaken. I remember I went home. Actually, when that happened, the breakup day, when my friend, the lady broke the news to me, I didn't even go home. I called home and said, I'm not going to come. I'm going to visit now this lady who is my prayer partner. My mom knew her. So I called her and told her, no, I'm going to my friend's house. And so I went and told her what happened. And I remember that night I really cried. And I told God, I feel like an orphan. So my first feeling was I felt like an orphan. I didn't feel God.
Like you had been alone.
I like abandoned. I felt completely abandoned. And when I remember that day when I prayed, I thank God, because God will come into our situation just as it is. So that day when I confessed that I felt forsaken, and God, I feel like, I'm an orphan, a spiritual orphan, like you're not my father, like you haven't dealt with me like a dad. And I cried. Immediately when I stopped, it wasn't prayer, it was crying, crying before God. And I remember when I opened my Bible, I came across a scripture that to date has encouraged me, and that is where the song was born from. God didn't answer my whys. He didn't even tell me what happened. I will know in eternity. But I remember the words that God gave me, that even though I will know shame, it is in Isaiah 54 verse 4, the B part. It says, it's a very beautiful scripture, but the B part is what caught me. It says that though you will know shame, you will not be humiliated. Again, I cried and I asked God, God, you mean you are telling me I will be ashamed? You know, now it's like this, the scripture just jumped from the book to my heart. And I knew God had answered me. He's saying, I am your father and you're going to face shame, but you will not be humiliated. And it was a journey. I began, like, sometimes I would be very sad, sometimes I would be very encouraged. And for me, my heart felt forsaken. That's how I felt like God had dealt with me.
Wow, wow. And interesting. And I believe a young lady, a young gentleman out there feeling maybe just being dumped or, just recovering. And, God says you will be ashamed, but not humiliated. So that's very, very encouraging. Interesting. So how was it after that? So now that has happened, you have cried, and I like what you say, that what you did, you actually acknowledged to God that you felt an orphan, like he wasn't your father. How could he let you? Which is very important because it's like loss, it's going through a loss. So it's very important for even people who are born again, because we can't spiritualize everything. If your heart, your heart. So it is okay to tell God your heart, your heart. So how was it after that, Carol, for you?
That was the beginning of a journey for Lynn. Because for me now, starting from that place of feeling very forsaken, but somehow deep down within my heart, I was a bit relieved, even though I knew now the journey ahead was gonna be very hard and very painful. Somehow I knew that I don't have to deal with those red flags anymore. But definitely, the first thing I wanted, I remember even telling this friend of mine that I went to her house that day. I remember later telling her that I wish this wedding just happened and then we later broke up. That's how much I wanted to run away. You know, the devil amplified the shame part more than uh, the shame after, because definitely even after breaking up and a wedding, it would still have been very bad. And even it would have been worse because now there's a document involved there, everything. So I wanted to go ahead. I had wanted that we just go ahead and just discard it later. And that is something that I caution young people with, because a wedding is not something you can just walk off. It is not something that you can just call off anytime. And so for me, that is how I felt. I felt I really wanted to just to just get married and throw this thing off later. Then I started the journey now of recovering. The journey, first thing that God spoke to me very clearly through another lady, a friend of mine called Mrs. Grace Karanja. She was also a mentor at KSCF, so she knew both of us. And so when this lady had known, of course, that there's the plans are underway, and so when I reached out to her and I told her what happened, and I remember she sat me down, because I didn't know when I was talking to her that I was talking with a lot of bitterness. I was so bitter. I'd go to pray, I remember, and I am praying and I feel like so much bitterness towards this person. And Mrs. Karanja told me, Carol, I can tell you're a bitter lady. And you know what? God will never vindicate you. God will never fight for you if you are a bitter person. So you must get rid of bitterness. Begin to forgive by faith. Because she said, forgive. I said, I can't. and so she says, you don't have to feel forgiveness in your heart, but just begin to forgive by faith. I think that's the most powerful thing she told me to date. And I remember I wanted to be free of bitterness. I had worked with God for many years, and I know how it is to walk out of God. And so I started praying for God to help me to forgive. It was hard. I remember sometimes I'll be praying good things for this person, but in my heart, I feel like I want to pray that, God, let him be hit by a lorry, let him fall down under a bridge, those things, bad things.
Mm-hmm.
But in my heart, that is what I did by faith. I would be praying good things, yet I want bad things. But I don't know at what point that bitterness left. Down the months, in continuing to pray, forgive by faith, I'd pray good things and just ask God to heal my heart and that I don't want to carry anybody. I realized at some point that it left. So that was one thing that I thank God today that God helped deal with, that I completely forgave. And then
Wow.
and then I really did I know that God wanted me to forgive so that he can also open my heart to deposit stuff. Because when I started praying this way and asking God to just release my heart so that even if he dealt badly with this person, what would I benefit? If this person had bad things happen to them, it would not benefit me at all. And I started asking God to deal with me. And I remember that's when now God started to minister to me in the song that I just opened up with. He started this one.
Carol, please add volume a bit. My viewers are saying your volume is low.
It's low.
Yeah.
And now, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, just go ahead.
So I was saying that when I forgave, God started trusting me with the message of the song that I just opened with. And I remember one thing that God said is when I was asking, sometimes when you go through this kind of an experience, sometimes you are happy and strong. Then the next morning you wake up and say, but why did it break? You go back again. So I had those moments of ups and downs. But that is when God started to mean. Sometimes I would open the Bible. I remember one day I was thinking and I'm saying, but really, God, that guy wasn't bad. That was a nice person. Why, Lord, did you take this person away? Or why did it happen? I remember reading in the book of James 1:17 that says that every good and perfect gift comes from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. And that moment, Pauline, I realized, oh God, you're saying that if this guy was good, you would have given me. I started saying, okay, so Lord, if he was good for me, then you would have allowed it. And I started accepting that sometimes God would deny us something, and yet it is satisfied. It is like he's trying to satisfy you. Like he would deny you something, but it is a way of satisfying. And I remember that is where the second verse of my song comes from, that says that you have satisfied me with every good thing, that you would not deny me anything that is good. That day I understood, if marriage for me to this person was good, God would never have denied me. And in looking back, I can tell you, really, God didn't deny me. But at that time, I didn't know, and I didn't feel that way. And then I remember sometimes I would be so discouraged. And every time God would give me a word. The other thing in my journey that also helped me a lot is my church. Like I told you, I grew up in the same church since I was a small girl. So this is a church, people that had watched me grow. And so they really, really helped me. My church family is, I think, when something like this happens, I would advise that somebody run to your church family. And sometimes the devil would want you to think that those people are happy that you are suffering. It is a lie. It is a misconception. It is an idea, what we would call an imagination. And that is why the Bible says pulling down imagination and any high thing exalting itself against the knowledge of God, because the knowledge of God concerning that situation is different. So my church family, one of the teams that really supported me, we had a team that was part of what we call the morning service, the English service committee, which I was part of. And I remember one time we sat down and, I'm so broken, and they said they came to visit me. And I remember one of the ladies told me, Carol, do not miss church even one day. Don't act like you have done anything wrong, or like don't let the devil, you don't let the devil, because let me say what she said. She said, because in the absence of information, people speculate. So she told me, do not let anybody who wants to know what happened, tell them. Anybody who wants to know whether there's a wedding or not, tell them. And so that is something that was beautiful advice. That, and they said, don't miss church even one day. Continue to do what you are doing for God even now, whether there's a wedding or there is not. So me, Pauline, all through that process, I never missed church. Even the Sunday after my supposed wedding, I was still there. But it's not that I was super strong. It's also that I had a very strong team of wonderful people around me. Then also I had a great team of friends. I remember sometime around there, they took me to Mombasa. A team of girls. We had a ministry, a girls' fellowship we called Oaks of Righteousness. So these girls
that
came
helped
together,
you.
and they took me to Mombasa to just relax. They helped me, like a whole week. So those are some of the things that God used to also help me recover. But I must say that the church family came in very handy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And it's amazing. I mean, that you said that every step of the way after it was cancelled, the verses were born, the verses of your song, which is sung far and wide. Wow, interesting. So, of course, you later got into a relationship. Did you have fears, like when you were getting into the new relationship? Because now you're married. How was that for you?
It happened like 3 years later. And my husband and I didn't want any long dating, like long courtship, because I'd known this other person for almost 4 years, and still I had not known them enough. So I knew sometimes you can never say that you really know somebody. So we had a short, well, sometimes I say short, but it's not short with some others, because it was a year. And that was in 2012, and we got married in 2013. But it wasn't easy for me to get into it. I think if I met somebody who is different from what my husband is, it may not have happened. So it wasn't very easy. Also, I realized during my relationship with my husband that sometimes you can make someone pay for somebody else's mistakes, especially when you go through that kind of an experience, and see a small mistake, that translates to something you had seen with that other character. It is possible to completely, it is possible to completely say or even conclude that this person is the same as that other one. So what the thing I did, like I began saying that when you're going into a lasting relationship, go with the right foundation. So the first thing I did is that this person, when I began into my relationship with my husband, I sat him down. I told him everything that transpired. I told him how far we had gone. I told him, this is me. So don't hear stuff that there was a wedding, that this is how it all went down. So we sat and had a long talk. I told him how it went down. I gave him details, all those. And so we came in with that. So sometimes even when I get afraid of those or to things that sometimes will look like reminiscent of the other in character, he would understand, because now he knew where I'm coming from. So God made it pretty easy for us, and it was also that I also felt like he was carrying me through it also.
Wow, thank you. I cannot believe it, but I'm going to ask you for your parting shot. The time goes very, very fast. But what I like is that in your journey, as you kept talking, there are good nuggets that anybody out there gone through a broken relationship, gone through maybe a cancelled wedding, wondering I've been in one, it hasn't happened. I like that. I like the clarity of being real, going through the healing and everything, having people to support you, not thinking that people are thinking, fearing people are looking at me this way. and it could be a misconception, you know, after going through a breakup. So, Carol, there's someone like that out there who has been listening to you. And what would you tell them? What would you talk to that person? Our theme for this month has been keeping hope alive. You went through a cancelled wedding. What would you tell that man, that lady watching?
First of all, I would say that if you're in a relationship that has so many red flags, do not be afraid to confront them. It will be better to confront them right now when you are not married than later when you're married and can't get out of it. And so I usually advise and say this. I speak to many ladies and I tell them, you know, a broken engagement is better than a broken marriage. If you can get out of it, if the red flags amplified 10 times are things that you can't handle, then don't get into it. And sometimes people don't want to get out of relationships simply because they are wondering what will happen in the unknown. You know, if I let this person go, will I get a better one? Will I get another one? God has many sons. God has many daughters. People that are worth your heart and worth your attention. God has good. The Bible says that I have good plans for you, not of bad. So if you're wondering whether if you walk out of that, if you break it because of those so many red flags, if somebody else will come along, that is what God has in mind for you. Someone better. Because he says that he has good plans for us and they are of good. So that's what I would advise. And then if you're in a relationship that has broken up, begin to thank God, because I thank God for myself. I didn't know that my breakup was going to give me a beautiful song. And my breakup was like a highway that has taken me into my destiny. It actually jump started my ministry. I have had invitations to many places, State House, out of the country, churches, so many places. And know why? Because of one song that was sung because of a breakup. So I am
During
looking
your
at that
painful
person.
moments.
Yes. So I'm looking at that person who is wondering what to do because they were left or somebody broke their heart, or you know, a marriage that was almost to happen a week two has broken up. Look at what God has left for you. God is the reason why not everything has been taken away from you. So thank God for that, what that has been left. Find out what God wants to do with your life. And you know what? If you have gone through a tough time, it is because there's a better reward for you and that God has a better plan. So for me, I would say just keep hope alive. Do not wonder whether God has somebody better. If that one has left, it's because God has somebody better. And because marriage is a beautiful institution and God began it, He would not have you begin it on a wrong footing. He has the best interest for all His children in His heart. So encourage yourself. Also ask God to help you forgive. Sometimes, Pauline, I cannot live without saying this. Sometimes we can deny the better person and the better gift that God is bringing our way when we don't forgive. It would never benefit you if that person was hit by a lorry. It would never, even if they broke your heart, it will never. But when God comes to avenge for us, that is how I have come to see it, is that God deals with you who has been hurting. He blesses you. He increases your life. He beautifies your life. So the blessing of God, because even that person is God's child. So God is not in the business of hurting his children, but he's in the business of, because you have been hurt, he will heal you so well, bless you so well, that issue will look like a joke years later. To me now, I laugh about it. I even look and say, oh my God, what did I like in that person? Not that they are bad, they are very nice. Even now, it's a friend, it's somebody I know and I like, is a friend. But it's sometimes I'll look and say, what was it that I was so captivated about? Because God has healed me so well. I laugh about it. I say, oh my goodness, and the way I cried for a man. So it will pass.
But it was good that you cried because you needed to heal, Caro.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, thank you very much. We would definitely have wanted to go on and on, but time for our viewers is over. And thank you very much, Caro. Thank you for being real, and thank you for being here this evening. I'm sure somebody has gone home with something, and we continue on with the month of keeping hope alive. And next Friday being our last episode. On Before I Say I Do. Thank you, Fiona, for doing our interpretation. My parting shot is disappointment may be God's appointment. Bye for now. See you next time. God bless you. Bye, Carol.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.